Hey, Mike,
Hey Tim,
how are you?
I'm all right.
Good. I talked to Hobbsy and he said, did you help out with the back jump stuff?
I sat in on it, yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to sit in on ours too?
Yeah, I think so, as long as I can.
Yeah. No, great. Have a little discussion. You can help me out on, I got a little itinerary of kind of just some stuff to go over in that, but some of that switching sides and stuff like that. Maybe you could give us some of the state background on some of it. And I don't know, I got on a discussion group just to kind of hear. And it seems like a lot of people just think it's nonsense, but other people think it kind of has to do with coaches. And it's kind of all over the board, for the reasoning with high school.
Well, yeah, I think the view is that it works well in the NCAA and NFL, and that, you know, certainly there will always be people that don't like it. I don't think, Lee was very skeptical going into it. And I'm not sure that he ever really came around that much.
Yeah.
If you asked him, I think he'd kind of say, well, I put up with it. But,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
where I found it helps is if you have a Mike Grant type of coach. It's a little different for him if he can't ride the same guy the
Coach.
entire game,
Yeah. I
right?
got that in my notes too. Yeah.
I remember a game in La Crescent where Tristan was helping us out. I think it was during the time you were taking a few years off for Cole, and John Austinson just was as bad to him as I. Tristan took more of that game than almost any official I've ever seen, and it certainly would have helped to have a different face over there in the second half.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to work you if they know you're leaving at halftime.
Yeah. There is going to be that in their mind that why am I doing this when I'm only going to have them for a half, especially the
Yep.
first half. You're right.
Yep. And I think it will. I think the flexibility of both wings, being familiar with the chain mechanics and that kind of thing, I think it'll be to the good. It's one of those things where it's not a huge uh, benefit in every game, but there are times where it helps a coach treat you more like um, less like you're a punching bag because they get the next guy over there and he's calling things the same way. But that's where it's important that you both sort of. I think it will help enhance people handling the sidelines the same way,
Yeah.
people communicating with coaches the same way.
Yeah.
It will. If you're lacking in that area, it's really going to be noticed by the coaches. If, for instance, the guy across from you lets people wander out to the numbers and you're tighter in a drum, they're going to notice that when you come over.
Yeah.
And it'll sort of, I think, help officials sort of come to a on our crew we're going to do it this way and we'll do it the same way.
Did they talk about moving the chains with the head linesman at
No,
halftime too?
not at all. They don't in NCAA,
Yeah. Did you
and
know they did that at the NFL level?
they do in the NFL.
Yeah, I did not realize that until I read the article. I'd have to watch it closer.
Right? No, that Mike Spanier said that. And basically, with the problems you have seeing the down box from the press
Press
box when
box.
it's on the near side,
Yeah.
that it's going to stay put.
Okay.
But the thing to emphasize is, for the most part, on most plays, it really doesn't matter which side you're on,
Yeah.
right? as far as mechanics. The one difference would be on a punt where the line judge breaks on as soon as the snap is cleared,
Yeah.
and the linesman waits till the ball is past the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I see, I think, yeah, it looks like Chris Loving is on the call. Do you see that?
I do. I got Chris. I got Todd. I
Right,
got
and
Ken.
Chris, works Division I, so he's used to switching sidelines. He
Yeah.
works a line of scrimmage, so I think he can vouch for the fact that it's something you get used to. And I don't really see a lot of downsides. In other words, if you tried to list, aside from people feeling a little annoyed with it and why are we doing it, I never saw any negative impact from switching sidelines.
Okay.
There's not always a huge positive. It might be a neutral, but it's you'd be hard pressed to come up with what all the negatives are, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Let's see who we got. We got Ted. We got Kurt, Todd Horman, Chris. Okay. All right. I think I am recording. Is that recording, Mike? Is that what that means up in the upper left? So we're started at 7, it looks like.
I believe that's what that means. Did
Okay.
Jared tell you anything about it? Or
Well, no, he didn't, but I do know that they're going to record this and put it on the website, I believe.
okay.
So, okay, guys. Hey, we're going to get started. Thanks for taking your time. Appreciate it. Tim Stilo is my name. I know most everybody that's on here right now. Thought we'd just go through a few things. I'm glad I've got Mike Graff on here. I know most of you know Mike. I talked to Jeff Hobbs this morning. They had their back judge one. I think they had 3 or 4 guys on that, and it went well. What worked out really well was having a lot of discussion with the people involved so that one guy just isn't doing all the talking. I've got some things that I want to go over with you guys, get some information out to you as wing officials, because there are some big changes. I don't know if you were listening to Mike and I kind of talk a little bit about it, and we'll get to it. But this is just going to be a start for the first week. I want to get an idea on which direction to go with some people in that. So please enter in, ask any questions you want. And with that, we'll get started. On this Zoom, I don't know how many of you guys have done the Zoom, but Tim Nicometto sent out some stuff. And just if you do have questions, I've noticed that most people are muted and stuff like that. So just go ahead, unmute when you're ready. If you have a question, I think the mute is better for background stuff like that for the other people involved. Feel free to chat. I think there's a chat room, but I don't see it on here right now. So I'll find out more about that. Maybe on the next one, we can use that chat room if you need to. If you ever have questions, I know I'm on your email and stuff like that. So if there's questions that you guys have, we can go over them, not on this Zoom meeting and stuff like that. So you can get a hold of me any time you want on my cell, or else my email address is on that email that sent out the Zoom. There's going to be 4 meetings. What?
Hey,
Somebody
Tim,
say?
real quick.
Yeah, Tim.
I'm actually an umpire,
Okay.
and I'm not doing a lot of the line of scrimmage. Is this going to benefit me at all? I mean, I know Dave Benson and Jonas Dean would be our sideline officials. So I'm just wondering if this is going to benefit me much, or I do have our meeting at 8 o'clock as well. So.
Yeah, good question. And I can go through a couple of things that might help you, Ted, if you want to know about it. There's some things that the wings are going to be doing differently as far as the mechanics this year. Okay. That would maybe be of interest to you. A lot of it is basically just going over some of the new mechanics, some ideas on what wings can do to get better and things like that. But if you want to listen, I can do some of that stuff early. And then if you just want to bug out, Ted, does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I do work with the sideline officials. So, the wings. So I thought I might join anyways, but if it's not going to be as much help to me.
No, some of the new mechanics, they'll be of interest to you, okay?
Okay.
And we'll go
Thank you.
through that here pretty quick. Okay. So like I said, we've got our 4 meetings. All of these are supposedly, Jared's going to be putting them on the website. So if you do miss any of them, I know Father's Day next week, that's going to be a tough one. I understand. But if you ever want to, you can watch those on the website. Let's see. I'm just looking at some of the guys. I know we've got some veteran officials here, so we're not dealing with a lot of inexperience. Kurt, welcome to the cruise and all that. Congratulations on your first year and stuff like that. So great to have you aboard. Of course, you and I have talked many times about questions, and I love all your questions. So please jump in on any of these questions and stuff like that, because I know Todd and I have talked about, learning and things like that. All those questions help just going over it. Okay. So feel free at any time. Let's see. The thing that Jared wanted me to emphasize most was it used to be the old days was we roll around August, we get started and, the season's ready. Now we need to do some off-season work. And that's what they're trying to do with this. We probably would have been meeting without COVID, maybe more in person and doing some stuff, but this is a great way to start thinking about football. And that was kind of my topic, was just the mindset and getting to think about high school football. I did see an article, I don't know if any of you saw it in the Post Bulletin, and I know it's been on my mind about what's going to happen these next Fridays. And Mike, feel free to jump in, but I know they interviewed like 18 to 19 coaches in the area. And it sounds like, I think the article was 19 coaches, and of the 19, 18 said they thought that we would have a season. Now, I don't know if that's going to mean shortened or what. They didn't get into that, but it sounds like, are you in agreement, Mike, that it sounds like we will have a season?
Well, that's what everybody wants. It's just hard for anybody to predict, the state high school league or anybody else to know. As you know, this is the year that Southeast is supposed to have a clinic, which usually would be held at Mayo High School. And they have not decided whether they can actually have in-person clinics or not. I mean, if it was right now, you really probably couldn't, because it'd be too large a gathering. So it may be a Zoom meeting kind of thing. And from there, there'll be lots to talk about. I know I'm going to be talking to the referee group about getting their crews ready for 2020. And a big part of that is COVID-19 and questions about things like, I'll just throw 2 out, not to steal your thunder, but is it smart to ride together an hour and a half each way to a game, 5 guys in a car? If you come down with what seems like a bad head cold on Thursday night, are you going to call your crew chief and say, I don't know what's going on, I've either got a cold or something worse, what do you want me to do? There's going to be, what happens if you work a game Friday night and find out Monday the head coach tested positive on Sunday? What does that mean? I don't have the answer to those questions, but I'm going to be throwing out stuff like that at the referees meeting, because it's better to think about it now than when you get that call at 8 o'clock on Thursday night from somebody on your crew, feeling sick and wondering if he really should go or not, or what you want him to do. So the actual answer to that is, unfortunately, it's like the major leagues can't figure out how to get their season started in baseball. The Minnesota State High School League is going to do everything they can to have a season. It's crucial for them to have sports, or they're going to have some real financial issues. And if it can be done, if it can be done safely, they're going to do it. But there's no guarantees at this point.
Okay. Well, when Jared and I talked, it was, plan as far as the season is going to happen. Get everything and everything prepared. Start preparing yourself in the off season. If not, we've not lost anything. We'll get ready for next year or what have you, but at least get prepared. Is that kind of the mindset?
Yeah, that's exactly the mindset. If make sure your crew is all registered and ready to go. They've extended the late fee date to August 7th, which means you can wait till late in July to see how things look before sending your money in. Because one thing they won't guarantee is that you'll get a refund or some sort of rebate if you send your money in and whoops, there's no season. They did not give a refund or rebate to the spring officials because you probably saw the notes, but the State High School League had already spent the money on rule books and all those things. So they just told the umpires, sorry guys, you're going to have to pay again. Well, that's going to make some people gun shy, right? So the State High School League, instead of having the late fee kick in on July 1st, it won't kick in till August 7th. But make sure, you're going to want to make sure you do it by then. For folks that have some concerns or underlying health issues, they have a little extra time to see how things look to decide whether they want to do it at all. So there'll be a lot of questions for everybody and not a lot of answers, much before August, I don't think.
Okay. All right. With that, let's go ahead and get into some of the things. When Jared asked me to talk about some of the things to get ready for the off season, some of the things we talked about were camps. A lot of this stuff isn't going to be relevant, unfortunately, because of COVID. But for some, Kurt, maybe in the future, some of the younger officials, camps are always important. There's one that we've always used going out to South Dakota. It's called the Sioux Empire Camp. And fantastic camp. It's a 2-day camp. You go out there. The first day is a lot of, they bring in some NFL and some NCAA guys, and they talk to you about high school and even some college and some, fundamental things. But then the next day you get to go out and be on the field with a lot of high school teams that are there scrimmaging, and excellent feedback in camp. But unfortunately, I did check in on that one, and it is canceled for the year. All right. So keep that in mind for the future. Usually the RAOA sends out, I don't know, Mike, 6 to 8 guys, roughly, at least a couple crews, if not more. But there's accommodations. We get accommodations and that, but excellent for the future if any of you ever want to think about camps and that. I know there's a couple up in the cities. I can't think of the name of the gentleman right now. Can you, Mike? He is an NCAA guy, but he does high school camp too. Is it Rick?
Rick Kruger.
Rick Kruger. Excellent.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, that's an NCAA. That's an NCAA camp.
Is that not
one's
high
still
school
pending,
at all?
guys?
What's that?
I signed up for that camp. It's still pending yet.
Okay.
The NCAA one, so
Okay.
in August.
Okay.
So.
All right. But yeah, that is structured a little bit more towards the college level, but the Sioux Empire is all high school. So keep that one in mind for the future. DVDs and videos. I know our crew and a lot of crews are starting to go towards that. We get a ton. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Tim Nicometto has been posting those on the website. So if you ever have time and you want to go and watch some of those DVDs and videos on there, there's one from out, I believe it's the Hawaii Football Association, I think it is. And the guy is great to listen to. It's funny to watch them. They're in shorts and they throw out some fun plays and that, but it's good memory type thing that you can watch, visualize, see plays. And I don't know, it's fun to watch. All right, is all I tell you. Articles, referee magazine, anything like that. I've gotten, the older I've gotten, the more I've started listening to some of the, or reading some of the articles in referee magazine. What you don't get in referee magazine is you don't get those specifics that maybe you're looking for, but you get the generalities and the psychology behind some of the things that are happening in high school football. I know Mike and I used to talk about some of the things that it's not a specific that happens on your crew, but it's like the theory and the thought-provoking things that'll make your crew get better by talking about some of these things. So I know it's general like I'm talking about, but if you read over some of those articles, especially for younger officials, I think you'd enjoy those. All right. Mike brought up some things that I think all the position groups, and Ted, this is what I'm kind of getting to. I'll get to you. And then if you want to drop off after, because some of it might be more discussion with our position group,
All right.
this will be of interest to you in that. So first I'll start out with the coin toss. Pretty much the same as last year. Prior to the kickoff, only in the U and the umpire and the referee are meeting. There was some push for reenactment with Mike Spanier and that, but they are cutting that out. They're just still doing just your preliminary one, get it done early, get the coaches in and out of there. Mike, was there any more talk about where you want the wings and that? I know sometimes it's hard because now with some of the things we're going to be talking about and all the coaches we're going to need to talk to, is it okay if the wings are not there as much? Can they get out of there, or what do you like?
Well, the R walks in the team from opposite the press box from the chain side. The U walks in the team from the press box side, and ideally they meet in the middle. And if the field is clear, then the wings and back judge are staying. I believe it's on the hash marks.
Hash marks, yeah.
Yeah, to keep players away. Now, I would assume, and anyone speak up if I'm wrong about this, I'm assuming that you end up kind of holding it wherever you can because the teams are still actively warming up. We're looking to have the toss at the 30-minute mark before the game.
Correct.
So just the U and the R, and find a free space on the field. Having one or two guys to keep other players away would be helpful, and not necessarily. Okay. So you're not looking to march into the middle of the field and disrupt everything. The whole idea is to let the teams know which way they're going to be going to start the game and whether they're kicking or receiving. And, like Mike Spanier said, not be a big dog and pony show.
Okay.
So it's a workmanlike thing, get it done. And when I was still on the field, I found a clear space and got a little help from one or two guys on the crew to keep the other players away. And then me and the umpire did the toss. So the whole idea is, it's a low-key event. It's important because it says which way the teams are going to be going. But beyond that, like Tim said, get it out of the way. And when the teams come back, you have the anthem and introductions, and you go right to the kickoff.
Okay. All right. The next thing, game balls. Now, this is going to get away from, I think, where we were headed before. It used to be, let's make sure we've got a pressure gauge. Let's make sure we got a ball pump and that. But I like how they broke this down. Now what we're going to be doing, the protocol they're using is if you get the balls early in the locker room, we can go ahead and use that pressure pump, because then you've got time. You can sit there, you can weigh the balls, you can put some extra air in it. But let's not be carrying our pressure pumps and our gauges out onto the field and make it this pomp and circumstance with the balls. Let's feel them, make sure they're not underinflated. If they're underinflated, yes, maybe we have to walk over and do it. But otherwise, it's going to be more of the feel test like we used to do. Let's feel them. We're still marking them, making sure each ball that they want to check in is marked, but we're just doing it on a feel test. Is that the correct understanding, Mike?
Right. It's a visual and touch inspection. You want to make sure the ball isn't a greased pig, that it's 30 years old and we're going to use it on kickoffs and hope that the receiving team drops it.
Yeah.
They need to be new or nearly new balls with good nubs on them yet, and that the pressure feels right. And you can have the gauge along as a threat. It's like, hey, this needs more air. We've got a gauge in our bag if you need, me to check it, but I need more air in here and bring it back. So don't, let them go and do that. But otherwise, if the ball feels good, feels about right, and or they have to put air in it and now you like it, we're good to go. We're not so worried about whether it's a half pound off or not.
Good.
Kind of trying to get away from this sort of officious, jab the ball in. And there's a legendary RAOA story when one of our guys bursts a bladder on a brand new ball, doing that on the field.
That might be my crew there, Mike.
Yes, it is.
But the whole idea is that make the balls, good playable footballs. It's almost more of an issue to have these really old worn balls. We all know what we're talking about, right?
Yep.
We don't want those kind of balls in the game, especially if they tell you they're just going to use them to kick off. If they're not willing to use that ball in a scrimmage down, then that's a problem.
Yeah. Okay.
But otherwise, what we don't want is, to me, to have one crew out there with a gauge and the other crew is doing what I did. This looks good to me. It makes us look inconsistent from crew to crew. What they're doing now is they're putting right in the manual touch and visual inspection if it's on the field.
Okay. Meeting with the timers has changed depending on the clocks. Now we had a few, some of your nicer fields will have that 40-second clock. So what they've gone to now is the line judge will now meet with the game clock operators and the back judge will meet with the play clock operators. So this is all going to be done pretty much. I'm assuming we're going to want to get that coin toss done as soon as we get on the field, meet those coaches, say, guys, any questions, let's get through that. Let's get the coin toss done. And then let's break apart and start meeting our operators. We'll get to what we're doing with line of scrimmage guys here in a second, but get a lot of that stuff done right away. Some of this, okay, let's get into it. So what the state is going to this year is the NCAA and the NFL rule where the line judge and the head linesman are going to be flipping at halftime. Okay. So there's going to be a lot of preparation before the game, making sure that we meet with coaches, making sure we meet with ball boys, making sure we meet with get back coaches, making sure we meet with chain crews. So I guess that's why I'm kind of entertaining all this, because there's a lot of things that are going to need to be done that maybe were done by one individual person before, and now it's going to have to be two guys going and doing it at the same time. So there's going to be a lot of game preparation, Mike, would you call it? Is that kind of what they're getting at?
Yeah, I think in quite a bit of this is the main group to be talking to about this. The line judge will start the game with the chains. So he'll have the chains in the first half. Linesmen will flip over and have the chains in the second half. And if there's overtime, going into overtime. So sometimes we all know sometimes the timers aren't there. Sometimes the chain crew isn't there. So you got to have some flexibility. But the idea is that if the line judge, we want both the line judge and the linesman to meet the chain crew, okay? That way, when you give the chain crew instructions, you're all on the same page over how you're gonna work together. So, and especially since the line judge is starting over there, he wants to learn everybody's name and make sure that he's hearing the message that the linesman is giving to the chain crew, okay? Now, if at that moment the timer comes down and says, I'm ready to talk, Well, there's where you need to have some crew flexibility. Have the back judge or the referee, possibly, but have somebody else be ready to talk to the timer. I think it's more important for the line judge to stay with the chain crew until they're done with that.
Okay.
Realistically, a lot of times that chain crew is getting to the field pretty late. So probably the line judge will have already talked to the timer by the time they arrive. And the
Okay.
manual wants the back judge to be the one who talks to the ball handlers, and line judge talk to the game clock. If they do have a play clock, then both the line judge and back judge will talk to both timers at the same time. That usually works the best. So the line judge and linesman will be pretty busy. It's sort of dividing up the jobs, right? It's there'll be plenty to do in that half hour, even when the teams leave the field. At that point, will probably be when the chain crew shows up, etc.
Yeah. So on this same part, Mike, and guys, enter in on any questions you have. This is all going to be kind of new, and I'll get more stuff for you in the future on it. But my question is, Mike, if we take a rookie, start the rookie probably on that coach that you're worried. I mean, how do you kind of going to handle that with, let's say, I'm going to use a high school, let's say Winona, and you're dealing with a tough coach down there. And where do you put the rookie in the first half versus the second half? I would think you'd want the veteran in the second half. Are you flip-flopping sides with their just responsibilities? What's your
put him at umpire? No, it's the beauty of it is with the switching. If you have a coach that's difficult or having a bad night, the new guy isn't going to be stuck with him for the entire game.
Okay.
He's going to either get away. He'll only have him for one half. If you have a strong feeling that you've got a brand new official who's probably a little nervous, and one of the coaches is just going to be tearing people up, I would start him over there, because he's going to feel, because then when you get to crunch time at the end of the game,
Yeah,
he's going to be on the other side.
that's what I think.
Ultimately, we have to have faith that the guys or gals we take along can handle the job.
Okay.
So I wouldn't overthink it. Sometimes that coach you think is going to be a bear is mellow all night long, and the guy you think is going to be real friendly is just having a bad season or a bad game and is hard to work with.
Okay. Let's see.
Hey, so can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah.
Just from a mechanical perspective, since I haven't worked college before, but I'm assuming we just, so basically the line judge is starting over where headlines would normally start.
Yep.
They have all the headline responsibilities as far as keys,
Yep.
punt coverage, that type of thing, correct? I mean, I'm assuming it's not going to change the system.
When it comes to keys, the back judge will always follow the line judge. You know how he helps out? If
Yep.
the line judge, if you have a balanced formation, the back judge is going to go to where the line judge is. So he'll always be going where Tim is rather than a side of the field. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does.
So the back judge will always go where you're at if you're the line judge, as you're the strong side in a balanced formation.
Okay,
So
how about?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, how about for for a punt? For a punt, would I still
for a punt
the line or be
for a punt?
off of
The official on the chains holds the line.
Okay.
Whether he's the line judge or the linesman. So the person across the field from the chains, press box side, breaks at the snap.
Okay. So that'll be the only real difference.
Yeah, I think with the kickoff mechanics we use, the extra points, I can't think of anything where there's really a big difference between what the two spots do. And I don't think it's really that bad a thing for both wings to be able to bring the chains out,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
for a measurement. So
Mhm.
I think there's, you know, benefits to doing it and not a lot of negatives. It may not always be a huge plus, but it won't be a minus. That having two different guys working with a coach who's having a tough night, it's kind of like two different guys saying, "Hey, coach, it's not us, it's you."
Yeah.
You know, but that opportunity you have in the second half, like Tim, you can go to that coach and say, "Hey, coach, you know, Tim Benz, I'll be on your sideline this half. You got anything for me before we get going here? Now's your chance." You know, it's just a good opportunity. You're coming in like a fresh,
Sure. Mhm.
like a fresh sub, and you're not a sub. You've been there, but you know, it's going to be a fresh start for him too. So
Mhm.
it's a good opportunity for him to feel like, you know, it's not a personality thing. These guys are here to do a job. They're not here to fight me. And they get a little more of a feeling for that when they're seeing two different guys over the course of the game.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike, I was going to ask that. So at the beginning, in your pregame, you talk to the coaches, you introduce yourselves both as your wings. I'll be your first half, I'll be your second half, and that. Do you do anything? Do guys like NCAA and that, do they try and catch that coach when he's coming out in the second half, just saying, hey, just a reminder, you know, I'm on your sidelines, you know,
Yeah,
just to get a,
typically as the when that coach gets over to his sideline, they'll go over and, well, maybe not shake his hand now with COVID, but they'll introduce themselves, say, "I'll be on your sideline this half, coach."
okay.
And I think Chris Loving's on the call. He could add anything, but the idea is that, yeah, that coach isn't going to know your name. So introducing yourself, you know, he doesn't care about you when you're on the other side of the field. He doesn't
Right.
care what your name is, but he wants to be your buddy now that you're on that side. So introduce yourselves, get a fresh start, ask him if he's got anything for you, and just work from there. And I think this guy's what it'll really emphasize for you. I was talking to Tim about this before the meeting, but what this will really emphasize for crews is each wing should be handling the sideline the same. You can't have one guy letting the coach come out to the numbers and the other guy isn't letting them touch the sideline, right? You know, you're going to want to be dealing with teams, coaches, and players the same on each side of the field.
Yeah, I can add something if you don't mind.
You bet, Chris.
Can you hear me? Yeah, so to answer somebody's question about what's the purpose, one benefit is at halftime, something we always do is we'll ask, hey, how was your sideline? Hey, you know, what did they have any issues? Did they have any things they had questions about? You know, you can kind of give a report on how that sideline is to your person that's going to take it over. And so when you come over, you have an idea of how to handle the second half or some things to be thinking about. So that's a great benefit. And then secondly, what I do is before the second half starts, I'll go to the old sideline that I was on and just quickly say, hey, coach, enjoy working with you. Good luck the rest of the way. Just as a, you know, just leave a good taste in their mouth, just show some professionalism and just kind of get them, you know, on the right track for the second half. So that I would suggest adding that to your halftime mechanics. Just, hey, coach, have a good second half. You know, it was a pleasure. Good luck, whatever, and move on.
Hey,
That
Chris,
goes.
I don't know what we'll get at the smaller schools, but at the bigger schools and that, do the coaches ask you questions or say, hey, the other guy wasn't doing this or that? I mean, do you get that interaction or are they so caught up in their halftime stuff that they just want to see a face? I mean, is there some discussion?
Some coaches are more savvy, if you will, and they'll try to maybe not put you against each other, but they'll try to put some doubt. Hey, Tim was calling it, Tim called the hold in the first half. Hey, where's my hold this half? So you
Okay.
got to be ready for that. But at the same time, like you said, like Mike said, this is going to build consistency across the board. And so he could be right. Maybe that other guy was a little tighter, and that's something maybe at a timeout or something at halftime, you can kind of talk about that, and hopefully you can fix it throughout the season.
Okay. Good. Any questions, anybody on that? And I know that, I think, Mike, you told me to make sure I emphasize the state, we're doing this from 9th grade. It is a good idea to start doing this, getting people used to it at 9th grade on
In
up.
3 and 4 man crews, 3 or 4 person crews, we have 2 wings. There's no reason not to switch sidelines at those games. We're obviously not too worried that we're going to get chewed up by a 9th grade coach. But again, it allows you to get to know multiple coaches, and they get to know multiple officials. Sometimes that's the way you get ahead, is by the work you do at the under varsity games and getting to know people on various coaching staffs. So there's no reason not to do it. You're going to be doing it on Friday nights, so you may as well get used to doing it on Mondays and Tuesdays and Thursdays or whenever they're playing.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Any other questions anybody had on that? That's, like I said, I'll get more information as it comes out if people come up with new questions, new mechanics and that. But the other thing to talk about with that, because it will switch, like Mike said, with the line judges, we are still doing our key situation with trips and things like that with the back judge on working our inside out, I guess is what you would say with the back judge. So if with the more and more high schools are going to this spread formations with trips and things like that. And I think RAOA, I think we've kind of gone off on our own a little bit. I know other people up in the metro are doing it too, but against maybe the Federation keys and that. But those outside wings, we will still have that outside wide receiver if there's trips, and that back judge will have those inside too. Now, the key you got to remember is, the same thing. I know, Chris, you probably see it even more at the collegiate and D1 level and that, but it's that guy carrying the brick. Now, I'm not saying you sit there with and just all you look at is your outside guy, even though the D-back is 20 yards off him in zone coverage and that, but we're still watching that guy to make sure nothing's getting away. If there's a guy in press coverage on the slot on the inside, we're watching that guy. We're still helping out. But the key is still that back judge has the responsibility once they get downfield of those 2 guys, unless if we're going zone right off the line of scrimmage. Is that the general understanding, Mike?
Yeah, it is. They didn't talk too much or really want to get into back judge. They're not changing by the Minnesota manual. They want the back judge to take the outside receiver. With that said, in RAOA, the preference is for back judge to take inside. And there's sensible reasons for doing that. And the bottom line is it's an invisible mechanic. It's not something an observer can see that you're doing different. They don't know who you're keying on. They can't really tell. So I believe in going with what the manual says, but in this specific case, who's taking inside and who's taking outside, it's arguable that it's okay because that's not a visible mechanic like most things are. What they started to get into, and it was sort of a bridge too far, but Mike Spanier mentioned that in the NFL, the word key is actually taboo. There's no such thing as who's your key. What they have there, they call it area of responsibility, which is kind of getting into what you just said, Tim, where you kind of zone up, right? So in the NFL, they don't get that much into keys at all. In fact, it's like I said, a taboo word. They talk about areas of responsibility. So someday I think, we're going to maybe shift towards that way of thinking too. The idea is, cover what needs to be covered. Like you said, if your key is a wide receiver and there's nobody within 15 yards of him, there's not going to be much to see if you just lock in on him, right? Whereas if the inside guy is being pressed, we want eyes on that. So I know that probably all sounds kind of mushy, but the idea is that we want to be seeing the things that need to be seen, is the best way I can put it.
I think, Chris, initial responsibility, is that the verbiage that they use at the NCAA level?
Yeah, same kind of idea. Basically, at the snap, we have a responsibility at first, but as you guys just said, once the play develops, your what we used to call key could not be threatened. So you don't officiate air, you'd officiate what's threatened and what's that brick in the hand, that potential. And your guy is there, but he's in no harm's way. So
And that's the one that we talk about with our crew, is if the back judge, Jim Fall, has the inside two and the outside guy that I have is on the line of scrimmage, but there's nobody on him, but the inside slot, there's a guy on the line of scrimmage and he's going to go after him right away. That shifts my responsibility as me being 10 feet in front of away from him versus the back judge who's 30 yards away. I'm going to be able to see that better. And that's what Mike's kind of getting at, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Chris, is, it's silent. It's something we know, but I'm going to be able to see it better than the back judge. There's no reason I can't make that call because it's right in front of me.
right, 100%. You should at least have an opinion. Whether you have a flag or not, you should at least have an idea of what happened and what didn't happen in case somebody did throw a flag and you had to talk them off of it because you had an opinion of what happened.
And that's getting away from that word, like Mike said, that's taboo probably, is people are using, well, that's not my key.
Right. That wasn't my key. That wasn't my guy.
Yeah, why aren't you watching the guy?
Correct. That's
well,
out the window.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on keys? We'll go over that. That'll be one of the topics I'm going to have in one of the 4 meetings we'll have. But for right
The
now,
only thing I want to emphasize, Tim, is we do still have keys in high school. I don't want to get too far ahead of the.
No, I understand.
So when you look at the mechanics manual, you're going to see stuff on keys.
Yeah.
And I think anyone on the call or who watches this that's newer, feel free to call Tim or Hobbsy, Jared, and just if you have any questions about what we're doing versus what's in the manual, check with these guys, and they'll get you straight.
Gotcha. Let's see. We've gone over some of this. I wanted to skip around and get to get back coaches. We're going to probably need to talk to them, ball boys, Mike, all that stuff, probably with both officials, again, both wings, because you're going to have them on both halves. Or what do you think on some of that stuff?
Well, they don't really address that, but the ball boys specifically, the back judge is supposed to talk to them.
Okay.
He's got that responsibility. That doesn't mean if you're not doing anything that you can't join the chat, but make sure the back, that you're in sync with the back judge as to how the ball boys are going to operate. As far as the get back coaches, I mean, you can either ask the head coach second half or ask the wing who was there, hey, who's their get back coach. I don't think it's necessary that you in tandem talk to each coach. It's probably less confusing for them if they talk to the guy they're going to see first half and then talk to you going into the second half.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's like they're meeting too many people and, say what now? Who's going to do what? I do think it's better if the guy who's going to start on that sideline does the talking, the sort of
Yeah.
that kind of talking to the head coach. Also, you'll need to be aware there's a rule change that the head coach can designate who's going to make, foul decisions on penalties. It
I
doesn't have
noticed
to be
that.
him.
Yeah.
So that'll be another thing for you to keep in mind as you go from sideline to sideline. There will be probably a game or two where the head coach doesn't, designate somebody else to do that.
Okay. Now, Mike, while we're talking about it, and I know it just got brought up, what was the exact reason, or was there a reason why they went to this NCAA type of?
I think they've talked about it for a couple years. At the levels they're doing it, it's been pretty well accepted and by both the officials and the coaches. And I think it takes a lot of personality issues out of that sideline communication. If you've really done something to upset that head coach in the middle of the first quarter, he's not going to still be able to ride you about that halfway through the third quarter. He's got a fresh face now, and all that ire he felt is gone, or he really can't do anything about that. I think the feeling is just that it leads to a more professional communication between the sideline officials and the coaches, because they don't treat it as a personal thing. They know you're just there to do a job. And the other thing I think is, and Chris alluded to it, as a crew, you're going to want to be consistent in how you work with the sideline, and consistency is good. You really don't want it to be a completely different ball game depending on which wing you have, right? So I think it does lead to more consistent ways of operating on the sideline. You kind of learn in a hurry that if your buddy across the way is too loosey-goosey about letting coaches on the field, and then you try to enforce it in the second half, you're going to be talking after the game and saying, hey, Bill, I'd appreciate it if you took care of the sideline a little better because I got chewed up second half.
Okay.
So,
Okay. All right. Does that answer your question a little bit, Kurt? I know we had talked about that. Okay. Some of the rule changes, interesting stuff. I did notice Mike already talked about the designated representative. So Mike, my question on that designated representative is that discussed with the referee during our coaches meeting at the beginning of the pregame, where
yeah.
they will write down a number? Is it one on offense, one on defense, or how are they going to do that?
I looked at the
Because it doesn't say, it just says notify the referee of a designated representative coach.
well, remember, it can be a coach or a player. He may say, I want my defensive coordinator or my offensive coordinator to make the calls. Now that, I don't know how likely that is, because then he's got to make the calls when the team's on defense.
Defense, yeah.
Yeah. So my take on it is it's one guy, and it could just be a head coach who doesn't want to deal with it, and he has a main assistant that he really trusts. I don't think it'll happen that often, but that definitely should be part of the pregame discussion with the coach. We're going to come to you for penalty decisions, coach, unless you have someone else. No, I'll do it. That's probably how he'll respond.
Okay.
But definitely, yeah. But it's just now you'll want to, as a wing, you're going to want to know who it is for each team. And maybe at halftime that you got to remind yourself or ask the other wing, hey, who is it, the head coach that we go to for the penalty calls, right? I think it'll be so rare that it's not the head coach that it'll really stand out when that happens.
Well, yeah, because won't we still be by the coach going, Coach, do you want this? You're going to go 10 yards. this,
Well,
10 yards this."
you'll want to be by the person he designated,
Yeah,
but I would guess I don't know if you'll see one team that's going to tell you to go to somebody else for penalties.
okay.
You know, I always told the coaches, hey, we're coming to you for the big penalty decisions. We don't put that on the captain. And I never had one say, hey, don't talk to me, talk to my
Talk to 40,
coordinator.
The
Mr.
next
Tim,
one is,
Tim,
oh,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
Tim, I just have a real quick question. Assuming that this can be done, I assume that that person has to be on the field or accessible. That head coach can't be saying, hold on, let me check with the guy in the box and see what he thinks and then relay. I mean, that to me would take a long time, but if he's a designee, I assume that person's going to have to be on the field.
So are you saying, Kurt, that like, let's say the head coach, let's say he broke his leg and he's up in the box or something like that. Is that what you're getting at?
No, I'm
Are
saying
you saying
a coach, an assistant coach might have a better bird's eye view of what's happening, whatever, and or have a better opinion. And that head coach is like, hold on, let me check with my assistant up there, and that's who they designated. To me, that would take a long time.
Yeah. I have to assume, Mike, that they're going to want somebody on the field rather than that.
Yeah, that would make sense. I don't know whether the actual rule language will address that, but common sense says, you know, you could have phone problems or something else. You don't really want to be going upstairs. I think I would try to find a way to talk a coach off of that ledge if he tried to take me down that path before the game. Saying like, gee, coach, we really need it to be somebody down on the field. We have to have access to them so we can talk to them.
Yeah.
I think, Kurt, do you think most coaches would go along with that, even if they initially were thinking somebody in the booth? I think if you just said, you know, we really prefer having someone down here that we can converse with, I think that would make sense to most coaches.
Yeah, I agree. Next one, halftime intermission option following the weather delay. The halftime intermission may be shortened now by mutual agreement. So with our weather issues coming into play there. 40-second play clock clarification. This is to eliminate a potential timing advantage gained by the defensive team. The Rules Committee approved the play clock being set to 40 seconds when an official's timeout is taken for an injury to a defensive player or a defensive player has an equipment issue. So that's new there too. I think the biggest play rule change that I noticed was the spiking rule. With more and more teams in that shotgun or pistol formation, they now are able to spike it without that hand-to-hand snap now. Now, it's going to be interesting because I think, Mike, would you agree that the white hat is going to have a lot of that if a team is in hurry up mode and they're coming up, that quarterback can't be moving in that. It's going to be up to the R to watch some of that. We're going to be watching our wings, making sure the formation's right, making sure them get set. So it's going to be primarily the white hat who's going to be watching that. Would you agree?
Yeah, the white hat's going to have to judge whether that's a legal spike or grounding.
It's got to be pretty much immediate, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still a direct snap. It's drilled right into the ground type thing. It's a quick.
Yeah. It's as soon as he gains control of it, so he could, you know, bobble it a little bit and then spike it. And if I remember correctly, it can't touch the ground. So if it was a bad snap or he just dropped it, I don't think they're allowed to spike anymore. I'd have to take a look to verify that. But all of that stuff is going to be on the referee. That'll be the referee's call.
Okay. All right. Well, that covers pretty much everything I have. Any questions that anybody had out there that they were wondering about?
yeah, Tim, just one quick thing on that designee of for penalty enforcement.
Yeah,
that type of thing. There's only one person that it's either the head coach or some designee. You can't have a head coach and a defensive coordinator. Caledonia tried to pull that a couple of years ago with
that's when Carl and yeah, they
and Brent.
both
Yeah.
were.
Yep.
Correct. Correct. We had that also with Cleveland, Minnesota had co-head coaches, and we had to designate which one was going to make that call. Same type of thing.
Yep.
But I still think it's going to be, you're going to be with that head coach, especially in the fourth quarter when it's a timing issue. Do you want the clock running? You're still going to be talking to the head coach. I just think this is more of a, I don't know, something to write down in the rules to allow it somebody else maybe, but I'm not sure why the editorial change is there. So
Yeah, again, maybe unless a head coach is up in the box for some reason. Or,
yeah, which is one I thought of as if he broke his leg or something and he's up there and wants something to do with it. But you're still going to be designating somebody down there on the field.
You know, Tim, that's probably for those situations like Gagliardi up at St. John's where he was 110 years old and still coaching, but he designated assistants to talk to the officials and take care of the in-game things. He didn't make a lot of those decisions. What I would say is that if the coach has designated somebody, that's the person you should talk to. I think it's going to be a very rare case. If the head coach is insistent that you talk to him, I'd have a hard time not talking to him. I think that's kind of where you're coming from, Tim, is, you're going to end up talking to the head coach. But if he's looking at you going, why are you talking to me? Talk to the guy I told you to talk to, then that's who you talk to. A lot of times the coach has, the very rare times that a coach does that, he has a reason that he's doing it, and you should respect that. But like Tim Benzer said, don't let him give you 2 or 3 names because then whichever one you talk to, no, I didn't mean talk to him. So I think the rule that they can designate somebody to call timeouts has been around for a long time. And it isn't very often that they designate somebody to do that either.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other questions anybody had? I think what we'll do is I'll shoot out an email to the position group, just say how it went, ask some specific topics. But if you guys have topics, please bring it up. We'll talk about it. I'll be the facilitator and we'll get some questions answered, talk about some thought-provoking ideas. So otherwise, that's it for me, guys. Mike, thank you for your help. Chris, thanks for your help. Guys, thanks for taking your time.
Hey, Tim, thanks for your help.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Have a good week, guys.